What's up, folks? I'm Odd, by the way, and today we're going to be playing with an idea that I've had for a little while that I never quite got around to. I think I bought the sketchbooks intended for this forever ago. I use one on the daily, actually, as a relatively personal sketchbook just to put little things into. It's quite handy for that, actually. And the way that I approach sketchbooks, obviously, I'm not a very traditional forward person, so sketchbooks are definitely sketchbooks. And yes, you probably saw from the title of the video, but this is going to be about sketchbooks to a degree. We all, as artists, probably have about 50 billion of them that we never wind up using. And they can be anything from your daily driver to just feeling like the most precious thing in the world. I mean, some people obviously put a lot of aesthetic and effort into their sketchbooks, which is fine. It's perfectly fine. It is, if that is your preference, if you want to make your sketchbook look like the best damn thing on the planet, that's your prerogative, I guess. Although I don't necessarily think personally that's where I come from with them. Where I come from with them is mainly practicing concepts, doing ideas, and I do think that you need a messy sketchbook. If you have a pretty sketchbook, that's fine, but you also need that quick, messy, dirty, naughty sketchbook. I mean, you can have that kind of naughty sketchbook if you want, but I'm talking about, of course, in this circumstance, just something to kind of put bad art into, not even necessarily bad, just something that you put your shapes and your expressions and just everything into. And I've had my nighttime / daily driver notebook sketchbook, which is again the same kind as this one. I got 2 of them, and I just go crazy in that thing. So I thought it'd be interesting to see just how quickly I could tear my way through a sketchbook, being still mindful, not necessarily making absolute nonsense when it comes to scribbles or doodles or anything like that, but just to see how quickly. I don't think that I'm going to put trying to fill a sketchbook, but how much of a sketchbook can you fill in and out? 1 hour. When it comes to actual art for me, and you don't really see part of this process because I do speed paints, it's about 3 hours on average for a full piece for me. And that's digital. And traditionally, that can range from 3 to 5 hours to 1 hour. Just depends on how complicated the thing that I'm making is. And that's to be said for all my art, actually. But especially for traditional art, because I'm not as practiced in it. It does seem to take me a shorter period of time, but that might just be because I don't use a lot of different methods the way that I do when I do digital art. I usually wind up with 40 billion layers and different layer effects and things that I'm playing around with and all that. And I can, because it's digital and it's a bit more fluid. Traditional is a bit different, and I'll get into it a little bit too, but I think that I'm going to pop over really quick, readjust my camera, and kind of show you what we're working with, because I thought that this sketchbook in particular was neat. Okay, we're finally at the desk. It took a second for me to set everything up. It's dirty. Should have cleaned it beforehand. This is the results of my last traditional project that I totally haven't really dusted off. But yes, we've got Grumbacher. I got this at Walmart. I just thought that it was interesting. It's got 60 sheets, mixed media. And the cool thing about it that I might not use today is that you can pull, they both have perforated edges, but you can pull the sheets out and then you can kind of thread them back in. Now, this has become a problem with my everyday notebook because sometimes these just get bent out of shape and then they just don't go in. They don't stay in, and then you've got a page half coming out. But the concept is interesting, at least. So I'm going to be playing with that, and you might notice that I don't necessarily have a pencil here. I just have pens, these 2 mild liner water-based markers. Now, the reason for that is because I don't usually, if I'm going for a daily situation, I'm not usually sketching in pencil unless I'm making something that I want to post. That sounds a little bad, but you'll see what I mean, because it's you can see the undersketch and stuff like that, and these are great for under sketches, these or any other like markers even, because they look cool. And I kind of like the messiness of a sketch, honestly. I like the looseness of it, and I've been kind of incorporating that more into my art recently, I feel like, because it feels more like me. I really like the way that a messy sketch looks, honestly, and my sketches are quite messy. And so yeah, before I set everything up, like a timer and stuff like that, I'm gonna mention that like I'm probably not just gonna like, it feels like it would probably be easy to cover a page by just like, done, next page. Like, I could do that, but I think that I am going to take this a little bit more mindfully and actually be working on like actual drawings and studies that I might do in a sketchbook and just do a bunch of that. And that being said, I do need to like stretch out my wrists and stuff like that. This is a good one. Just get all your phalanges all bunched up, and then you just, oh yeah, that's nice. You just gotta warm up your hand. Don't hurt yourself while you're doing big exercises like this, okay? Don't give yourself carpal tunnel if you don't need to. And you might see the weird way that I draw here, that I tend to revert to drawing. That is kind of a bad habit. I hold my pens like this. Don't know why. Like, I do know why. Is because I was taught this in like kindergarten as like an alternative to this. And I just kind of never grew out of it. Like, they intended to adjust me to it or something. To the one finger grip, but I wound up going through like, I didn't have very good fine motor skills when I was little. So I wound up going to occupational therapy, and I think they gave me grips that were like this in the hopes that eventually I would move to this, but I never moved to this because I stopped going to occupational therapy. So yeah, trying to unlearn that, because it does like cramp up my hand quite much. And I know that like the pincer grasp is probably better for that. And I'm getting better at it. It's just not what I'm used to. But yeah, I figured that we would try with a subject today, and I might change subjects depending on how much time that I have. But I figured that I would look up maybe some references of like bears or something. Something that's pretty like simple that I wanted to study a little bit more, you know? I'm gonna set a timer for an hour and try not to look at it. And I guess at that, we can just get started, 10 minutes later. And yeah, I'm probably going to be relatively silent. So I'll speed through this and I'll do a voiceover, I'm sure. But I will talk to you then. So for the first page, I decided to go in with some more direct studies, figuring out shapes and anatomy and all that. I wound up mostly doing grizzlies because that's what popped up in the search engine, but I did squeeze a sun bear near the end there. You know, those little bears that don't really look like bears. They kind of look like humans in costumes. Grizzlies, though, they have very angular faces. Their muzzle kind of goes into like a flat plane on their forehead, though they are quite heart-shaped, which I find adorable. I also realized that their ears rest much further back than you'd assume that they do. I think that I've had problems with that in the past, so that was definitely one thing that I picked up from drawing this many bears. The sun bear turned out a little melty for my liking, so I resolved to go back to it later. I think it was in part due to the fact that I tried to flip it from the original image and my brain wasn't quite warmed up enough for it yet. For the next page, I started trying out more expressions and exaggerated shapes. I won't lie, I definitely had the whole Brother Bear soundtrack in my head as I did this. Kind of reconstructing where those ideas for stylization came from is actually really fun for me. I like seeing it take shape. I didn't quite try a Disney style, but at some point or another, this makes me want to try maybe doing like a style challenge of some sort. The third page was all sorts of stylized shapes. I decided to try a fully heart-shaped bear, which turned out pretty well, at least in the second iteration. I also decided to try my hand at a polar bear. Conveying both the sort of roundness and their like power is definitely a challenge. This polar bear came out very round, but I love him. I also drew a little baby bear waving because I had to. Bears actually have 5 toes, by the way. They also walk like humans, plantigrade on their feet as opposed to digitigrade. Think how dogs' back legs look. That bend is actually their heel, and they essentially walk on their tippy toes. If it's not obvious, I already knew most of that. I don't know if it comes to any surprise that I'm actually quite an animal nerd. I soaked up every animal documentary as a kid, and if I'm able, I will make it everyone's problem. Fourth page, and I realized I was already running out of time, so I very quickly just tried to sketch some sun bears to make up for my kind of earlier flub. They have such long tongues, it's great. They also just look so damn sleepy. They're such wrinkly creatures. I get why they could be mistaken for people, because a lot of the time a bear can just walk around, or a bear can just look like a human in a furry onesie, trying to walk around on all fours. I also tried to add in another one looking absolutely traumatized and some branches for a bit of a nicer context because the first one was supposed to sort of be laying down. Though, of course, I've been spending way too much time on details, so before I know it. Okay, my timer scared me. It looks like I'm done. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I got 1, 2, 3, 4, technically. Mainly like 3 whole pages. Or 2 whole pages, I guess. But technically 4, because it's front and back. So, I mean, that's not bad. It's definitely less than I thought I would be, but I definitely wound up focusing a little bit more on the details here. Started drawing a sun bear near the end, just to try and redeem myself from the original one that I tried to draw. But yeah, less than I thought, I guess, but probably still quite a bit for an hour, especially considering I wasn't like rushing or anything like that. Like I wasn't trying to fill this as quickly as humanly possible. I'm sure that I could go faster if I were to forego some details, but I wanted to make sure that I had some, like actual sketches in there. So I think that 4 pages is pretty good. But yeah, these are my finished results. You can see I'm probably going to talk a little bit about these in voiceover later, but just trying to get more like first trying to get the detail right, then kind of going into stylization, and then sun bear. So if you like this video, please give a like, obviously, and if you want to see this or other challenges, make sure you let me know, and of course you can always subscribe to see more of that in the future. At that though, I think that I'm going to leave this here with our kind of uncompleted but relatively good looking sun bear and his long ass tongue. And at that, I'll see y'all next